Coming up on The World Today. US President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump test positive for coronavirus. European Union threatens to impose sanctions on Turkey over provocations and clashes in a row with Greece. Plus, Armenia says it's ready to dialogue with the international community on how to halt days of fighting with Azerbaijan. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shobowale. White House officials say US President Donald Trump is experiencing mild symptoms of COVID-19 after he and his wife tested positive for the virus. President Trump's chief of staff says the president is on the job and in good spirits, adding that he expected him to make a quick recovery. The president and his wife received the result after one of the president's closest aides became infected. In the meantime, US Vice President Mike Pence and Second Lady Karen have tested negative for COVID-19.
Just about 4 weeks to the U.S. presidential election, President Donald Trump announced in a tweet that he and his wife Melania had tested positive to COVID-19. The president's result comes after months of downplaying the severity of the outbreak that has killed more than 207,000 in the country. Hours before this news, it was reported that Hope Hicks, a close advisor to Trump who traveled with him aboard Air Force One several times this week, had tested positive. According to Mr. Trump's physician, both the president and his wife are well at this time, and they plan to remain at home within the White House during their convalescence. As expected, international reaction has been trailing the news. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson tweeted that he hoped the couple both have a speedy recovery, returning the favour to Trump, who tweeted support to Johnson when he himself was in hospital with COVID-19 in April.
Looks like by April, in theory, when it gets a little warmer.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi says he wished the first couple a quick recovery and good health. Meanwhile, spokesperson for the French government says the president's diagnosis demonstrates that the virus spares no one, including those who have shown skepticism.
And I will use it gladly.
Just a day before he tested positive, President Donald Trump attended a rally at an airport in Minnesota. As has been the case at most of his public appearances, the president did not wear a face mask. The crowd was not socially distanced, and most of those who attended appeared to have not worn face coverings either.
47 years of betrayal and 47...
Let's get more on this story from our Washington, D.C. correspondent, Maria Bird. Thanks for joining us on the program, Maria. What reactions has it been like in the United States over the president and his wife testing positive for the coronavirus?
I think some aren't surprised, but others are a little skeptical. Many are wondering what is behind this, I think, is the real big question, because it came out and it just seemed as if it just came out of nowhere. And as many people have mentioned, it's the president has been one that has said, this virus will disappear. It'll be like magic. It will, there's no need to wear, he has moved more toward mask wearing, but he has not been a proponent of mask wearing. And he has not taken the virus as serious as many might have hoped in the U.S. But I think that people are just questioning and they're watching to see what will come out of this. And obviously this morning, they stated that this was pre-planned, but there was a conversation between the president and those in his immediate circle by phone. Related to those who are of the elderly community and those seniors who contract COVID and plans to be able to address that. And we all know the president is 74. So he is in that bracket of older individuals that are at the greatest risk when contracting COVID-19. So the real question, again, is also those other individuals who are in close contact in the West Wing of the White House on a very regular basis, those reporters, who are on Air Force One with him. So it's many that are probably going to be quarantining at this time.
You know, it's quite interesting that this is all coming just very closely after the debate. There are fears that the Democratic candidate, Joe Biden, might also be at risk due to the fact that he and the president were not wearing masks during the debate. Has he reacted to this news?
Well, people are waiting for his test results to come out. And so that will be the question, is that I'm sure we'll hear either later today or definitely by the weekend the results of presidential candidate Joe Biden's COVID-19 test. But you bring up some great points with that. Many people are now questioning, why was it that Joe Biden did not wear a mask? As he has been a proponent of what science has said is one of the best ways to stop the spread of the virus.
The president has been widely criticized for his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Do you think perhaps he will change tactics, especially in terms of obeying safety guidelines following his diagnosis?
Well, those who heard the news as it broke around 3 a.m. this morning, noted that when he tweeted out, he said that, him and his wife were going to get through this together. And so I would not be surprised if we don't start hearing a message of togetherness. We're in this together. Definitely probably a new marketing and campaign pitch that will come out here as we're approaching 30 days into election. Many people are focused on America coming together. So this might be his way of being able to really focus on how he's going to bring America together. And he might actually have more kind of compassion toward those with COVID-19.
All right then, Maria, a lot to keep our eyes on there. Thank you so much for joining us on The World Today.
Thank you for having me.
In the meantime, the list of world leaders offering their best wishes and a speedy recovery to the presidential couple keeps growing. China has become one of the latest countries to wish the U.S. president and his wife a speedy recovery from the coronavirus. Well, you remember that the president has frequently accused China of covering up the virus, which was first detected in the city of Wuhan, saying they could have stopped the disease spreading, but China has called the comment an unfounded distraction. Or other international leaders to send well wishes include Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari. In a statement from the presidency, President Buhari notes with sympathy that the incident of COVID-19 in the White House manifests the challenge posed by the pandemic across the world and difficulty in containing the spread. Other leaders who send well wishes include the leaders of Zimbabwe, Canada. Figures from across the political spectrum in the United States have also reached out to offer their support. From across the aisle, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden has said he would pray for the health and safety of President Trump and his family. Former Democratic presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg and Tulsi Gabbard have also wished the couple a speedy recovery. Reverend Jesse Jackson, a veteran civil rights campaigner and Obama supporter, tweeted, "For whatever religious or political persuasion you may be, we must all pray as millions of people are affected by the disease." Meanwhile, Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott was one of many state leaders to offer their wishes for the couple's health. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said he was praying for their recovery and told reporters he himself had tested negative for the coronavirus. Well, as we mentioned, Joe Biden and his wife have also tested negative for the coronavirus. Well, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows says President Donald Trump has mild symptoms after testing positive for COVID-19, but he is expected to remain on the job. He adds that there would be updates on President Trump's health later today.
We have a president that is not only on the job, will remain on the job, and I'm optimistic that he'll have a very quick and speedy recovery. The doctor will continue to provide expertise in the residence. He's in the residence now, and in true fashion, he's probably critiquing the way that I'm answering these questions. And I can tell you that a number of us will be reporting back to him on the task at hand.
Still on the Trump's testing positive for coronavirus, we're now being joined by international affairs analyst Calvin Duck from Washington, D.C. Calvin, what impact is this positive diagnosis for the Trumps likely to have on the forthcoming election?
Well, first of all, this, of course, everybody here is just, kind of dealing with this news. And we, of course, wish the best for health for the president and the first lady. As far as the elections go, it's going to be interesting to see how the president adjusts to not being able to do the activities with people that I'm sure had planned. As you know, he doesn't seem to be one who likes the virtual campaigning. And also, I think that as we saw in the debate on Tuesday, and essentially since the pandemic began, Donald Trump has taken a very different approach to it, even downplaying it, saying that was his intention of downplaying it. And I think that particularly for his supporters, this development is going to make them think twice about some of the ways that he described the importance of protecting yourself against COVID-19.
Well, there are speculations that this announcement could be a gimmick by the president to avoid further debates with Joe Biden, who has now announced that he tested negative for the coronavirus. What do you make of this, especially as it's coming so close to that first debate?
Well, I'll say in general, the Trump White House has had a problem with credibility from day one. And so do I think that this is a gimmick or that it's not true? I don't have any evidence that it's not true. And I would hope that no one would ever do something like this that would mock the lives of over 200,000 Americans lost. However, President Trump's got to realize that it's times like this when you need credibility. And so that's why a lot of these rumors are coming up. Now, as far as him not wanting to participate in the debate, I don't think he wants to participate in the next debate. And I think that there may be efforts, not this in particular, but things to dissuade or to make his case that he shouldn't participate in the debate. I just hope that it's not related to his announcement that he had the COVID diagnosis.
Okay, so what can we expect from here onwards on the Trump administration's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I would have thought when I got up this morning that regardless of the severity of COVID with the president or the first lady, or regardless what everybody thought, that we at least as a country would be more attuned to what do we need to do to protect ourselves. But then when the president's chief of staff came out to make the announcement in front of people after having been around the president without a mask, that reminded me that it still hasn't sunk in with a lot of people. And that's unfortunate. I hope that will change.
All right, then, international affairs analyst Calvin Duck, thank you so much for joining us on The World Today.
Thank you.
Still ahead on the program. Remembering Jamal Khashoggi, activists paid tribute to slain Saudi journalists on the second anniversary of his death. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Still on the COVID-19 pandemic, several European countries are reimposing lockdowns and other restrictions in their worst affected regions, as figures show they're experiencing a second rise in the number of daily cases. Here's more on this and other development on our COVID-19 Global Update.
Spain has imposed tighter restrictions on movement for people in and around the capital, Madrid, where most of the new cases have been recorded. Under the new restrictions, 4.8 million people in the capital and 9 nearby municipalities will see borders closed to outsiders for non-essential visits, with only travel for work, school, doctor's visits or shopping allowed. Restaurants and bars will shut earlier. Elsewhere in Europe, masks will have to be worn outdoors in the Italian capital Rome and surrounding areas from this weekend. A health official for the Lazio region says only children under 6, those who cannot wear face coverings for medical reasons, and people exercising will be exempt from the rule. The head of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, says the European Union is in talks with more companies to secure potential COVID-19 vaccines, as she warns of the worrying spike in infections in Europe.
Progress on vaccines is the key to a long-term solution to this crisis. We are making good progress. The Commission has already concluded 2 advanced purchase agreements, and it is negotiating 5 more. And we are in discussions with 4 more companies. So this is on a good track.
To date, the Commission has announced supply agreement for the potential vaccines being developed by AstraZeneca and by a partnership between Sanofi and GlaxoSmithKline. In the United States, Amazon says more than 19,816 of its frontline workers have contracted COVID-19 since March. The number equates to 1.44% of its 1.37 million workers and its subsidiary Whole Foods. And finally, some good news for New Zealanders who are planning to travel to Australia. They are to be granted access to the country in the first opening of international borders by either nation since COVID restrictions were imposed. People will be able to fly from New Zealand to New South Wales and the Northern Territory and avoid mandatory quarantine from October 16.
Away from the COVID-19 pandemic, the European Union says it could impose sanctions on Turkey over provocations and pressures in a row with Greece over energy resources and maritime borders. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called on Ankara to abstain from unilateral actions in the Eastern Mediterranean. Earlier, Turkey and Greece set up a military hotline to try to reduce the risk of clashes in the region. Tensions rose earlier this year when Turkey sent a ship into a disputed area to search for potentially rich oil and gas deposits.
It is good that there is now a reliable dialogue between Turkey and Greece that has begun. However, we deplore that Ankara has not made similar constructive gestures towards Cyprus. We are convinced that differences must be resolved through peaceful dialogue and in accordance with international law. We want a positive and a constructive relationship with Turkey. And this would also be very much in Ankara's interest, but it will only work if the provocations and pressure stop.
Meanwhile, the European Union says it wants a new trade deal with Britain, but not at any price. With just under 2 weeks before what both British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the EU have set as a deadline for reaching a trade agreement, there's still significant hurdles to finding a way to smooth relations when a standstill post-Brexit transition agreement ends this year. Prime Minister Johnson is to speak to European Commission President on Saturday to assess the negotiations on their future relationship and agree next steps after the bloc launched a legal case against Britain over their earlier divorce deal.
We want a deal because we think it is better to have a deal as neighbors. Also on top in these COVID times with devastating impact on the economies, it is good to have a deal, but not at any price. And we should not forget that we have made progress on many, many different fields. But of course, the most difficult ones are still completely open. And this is mainly also the question of the level playing field. There's still a lot of work to do, but it is, as I say, a matter of fairness. And if you want to have the full access to the single market, these fairness rules must apply. Therefore, this is so difficult. But overall, where there is a will, there is a way. So I think we should intensify the negotiations because it's worth working hard on it.
Armenia's foreign ministry says it stands ready to engage with France, Russia and the United States on halting 6 days of fighting with its neighbour, Azerbaijan. Casualties have mounted in the southern region, with both sides accusing each other of launching deadly attacks. The conflict around the disputed territory of Nagorno-Karabakh erupted on Sunday. The enclave is officially part of Azerbaijan but run by ethnic Armenians. The two former Soviet republics went to war over the territory between 1988 and 1994, eventually declaring a ceasefire, and they've never reached a settlement over the dispute. Rights group Amnesty International says at least 3 people died in detention centers housing thousands of Ethiopian migrants in Saudi Arabia. Amnesty says the migrants were facing unimaginable cruelty, including being chained together in pairs and using their cell floors as toilets. It also urged Saudi authorities to improve conditions of the centers. The detainees were expelled from neighboring Yemen. The migrants from Ethiopia and other countries had been working on northern Yemen but were forced out by Houthi rebels. According to the UN's International Organization for Migration, some 2,000 Ethiopians remain stranded on the Yemen side of the border without food, water or healthcare. Thousands of Ethiopians go to Saudi Arabia for work, making the Kingdom nation a key investor and source of foreign remittances for Ethiopia. Today marks 2 years since Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi was murdered inside the Saudi consulate in the Turkish city of Istanbul. The 59-year-old Washington Post columnist was killed at the consulate on October 2nd, 2018, after he entered the premises to obtain paperwork for his planned marriage. His body, which Turkish officials say was dismembered by Saudi officials, has never been found. The Saudi government called the assassination a rogue operation after repeatedly denying any involvement in the incident for weeks. Activists and human rights groups have said the murder was premeditated and carried out upon the directive of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the kingdom's de facto ruler, a charge Riyadh denies.
Now it became second years we are talking about Jamal Khashoggi. Before 2 years in this point we was talking same thing. 3 things we need. Just before I talked the same things. The one thing is we need justice for Jamal Khashoggi. Still justice didn't happen for Jamal Khashoggi. Still there is a theatrical things happen in Saudi Arabia. They changed many ideas about Jamal Khashoggi's issue, but still they didn't tell us true story. So we need to justice for Jamal Khashoggi. The second things we asking for Saudi Arabia, where is the grave, where is the body of Jamal Khashoggi? They still didn't tell us where is the body of Jamal Khashoggi. The people wish they are in Saudi Arabia. The court is talking about them, but still they didn't tell us where is Jamal Khashoggi's body. Why they didn't talking about this thing?
And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shobowale.